sponsored by the James Madison Council.
Good evening. Marguerite D'Angeli's book, Bright April, had a huge impact on me as a child. When I checked it out from the public library, it was the first time I saw myself in a book. It started my journey to open the world of books to everyone. Good evening. I'm Librarian of Congress, Carla Hayden, and welcome to the 2021 Library of Congress National Book Festival Opening Night Celebration. It's wonderful to see so many of you who are joining us live tonight from across the nation. We wish we could do this in person, but as the nation continues to grapple with the COVID-19 pandemic, we want to continue to be safe. We have a great event for you tonight. The talented writer, actor, literacy advocate, and quiz master, LeVar Burton, will be joining us shortly for a conversation. So please get your questions ready for him. Also, we have a very special guest tonight. The theme for this year's book festival is Open a Book, Open the World. And we have an amazing lineup of more than 100 diverse authors for this 10-day festival. There's an author for everyone, children, teens, and adults. We have Michael J. Fox, Chang Ray Lee, Isabel Wilkinson, Jason Reynolds, Bill Gates, Diane Van Furstenberg, Trisha Yearwood, and many more. Also this year, the festival is on multiple platforms. So starting today, you can create your own festival experience. You can watch live virtual events like this one, watch videos on demand, listen to podcasts from NPR, attend a ticketed in-person event, and watch the special PBS broadcast, Open a Book, Open the World. Here's a preview.
Hi, everybody. I'm LeVar Burton, and this is Open a Book, Open the World, the Library of Congress National Book Festival.
When I try and create a work of fiction, one of my big aims is to create an entire world.
And I think that kind of fictional world and how we see characters express their thoughts and feelings, that for me is opening up the world.
I believe that narrative nonfiction is the closest that many of us will ever get to being another person.
And that sense of empathy is good for anybody, but it's also particularly important, I think, for writers, because that's one of our most important tools is the capacity for empathy.
I think there's many places that I've met for the very first time through a book.
For me, books were a way of learning about the world and experiencing things I had never experienced before.
Books have always just shown me just how big and how small the world is.
A good book can take you on a journey. And after the last year, we are all ready to plot a new course, and books can be an amazing compass.
An addiction to reading has been a key secret of my success.
It was literature that opened up so many pathways, so many possibilities for me.
I read books so I could discover new worlds in those books.
I have books that I don't even think of like this room. I don't think of having books in, but I have like 50, 60 books in this room.
It's enlarging your horizon. Books are everything.
It gives me more of a complex understanding of humanity, which I think is the power of stories, that we are able to see ourselves in all manner of different character.
And that, I think, is what I enjoy from a great book.
Join me as some of our nation's leading literary voices bring us a sense of renewal, discuss their newest work, and open up a whole new world of possibilities.
To start your book festival journey, visit the Library of Congress website at loc.gov/bookfest. None of this would be possible without the generous support from our donors. We couldn't do this festival without them. Our festival co-chair, David M. Rubenstein. The James Madison Council. The Washington Post. The Institute of Museum and Library Services, National Endowment for the Arts, National Endowment for the Humanities, NPR, The New Republic, Capital Group, Joseph and Lynn Dursh, the Library of Congress, Federal Credit Union, and Tim and Diane Naughton. We appreciate all of you. Now please welcome the co-chair of the National Book Festival, Mr. David M. Rubenstein, who will be announcing the winners of the 2021 Literacy Awards and introduce a very special guest. David?
Thank you, Dr. Hayden. It is a pleasure to join you and our virtual audience from around the nation. It is my honor to serve once again as co-chair of the National Book Festival. The festival is not only a celebration of books and reading, but also of literacy itself. Life in these demanding times can be very difficult for those who have never learned to read. Here at the Library of Congress, it is an important part of our mission to combat illiteracy and promote a culture of reading. Since 2013, I have supported the Library of Congress Literacy Awards to honor the outstanding work in the field of literacy and to inspire organizations to continue working for this noble cause. The awards recognize the need for the international community to unite in achieving universal literacy. Here are the top winners of the 2021 Library of Congress Literacy Awards. The winner of the 2021 International Prize is the Luminous Fund of Boston, Massachusetts. The Luminous Fund provides transformative education programs to thousands of out-of-school children, helping them to catch up to grade level, reintegrate into local schools, and prepare for lifelong learning. The winner of the 2021 American Prize is the Parents as Teachers National Center of St. Louis, Missouri. Parents as Teachers build strong communities, thriving families, and children who are healthy, safe, and ready to learn by matching parents and caregivers with trained professionals who make regular personal home visits during a child's earliest years in life, from prenatal through kindergarten. And finally, the top prize, the 2021 David M. Rubenstein Prize, goes to Dolly Parton's Imagination Library of Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. The Imagination Library is an initiative of the Dollywood Foundation founded by Dolly Parton in 1988. Imagination Library is dedicated to improving the lives of children through inspiring a love of reading by providing free of charge books to families through local community partnerships. In 2018, Dolly Parton was here at the Library of Congress to dedicate the 100 millionth book from Imagination Library to the LOC collection. To date, Dolly's library has given away more than 165 million books worldwide. So it is my honor to welcome global superstar, songwriter, and philanthropist, the one and only Dolly Parton.
Hey everyone, this is Dolly, and I am so honored to accept the Library of Congress Literacy Awards David M. Rubenstein Prize that has been awarded to my Imagination Library. Isn't that great? They say that great minds think alike. Well, I guess great libraries think alike as well. Seriously though, this award means a lot to me because I started this program in honor of my daddy who never learned to read and write, and I know that he is smiling from above on this one. We've really dreamed big, and I am so happy that the Imagination Library has inspired millions of families to read together and help lay the foundation for success in schools and beyond. But we're not done yet. So with our team and over 2,000 community partners in 5 countries who have helped us gift more than 170 million books to children and families, I am thrilled to share this wonderful award. You keep reading and keep dreaming, and remember that I will always love you.
Thank you, Dolly. We love you too for your support of literacy and reading. It's such an inspiration. And congratulations to all 3 2021 Library of Congress Literacy Award winners and the 14 Best Practice honorees. You can get more information about the awards by visiting loc.gov. Now, before I introduce our special guest tonight, we have an announcement for you. For the past 2 years, you know we have missed an in-person National Book Festival. So I'm excited to announce that we have scheduled a date for the 2022 National Book Festival back at the Washington Convention Center here in DC. It will be Labor Day weekend 2022. We're excited to see your smiling faces again, and if you don't live in the DC area, don't worry. We will continue to make this a virtual festival so everyone across the country can enjoy this literary event. We can't wait to see you both in person and online, so mark your calendar, Labor Day weekend 2022. Now to our special guest. He has been part of our lives for decades. We read with him on Reading Rainbow, watched him in Roots, one of the most viewed miniseries of all time, explored the galaxy with him in Star Trek: The Next Generation, and more recently, watched him host America's favorite quiz show, Jeopardy. And now he's the host of the National Book Festival PBS special, Open a World, Open the Book. In fact, it's Open a Book, Open the World. So joining us from Los Angeles, please welcome the multi-talented Mr. LeVar Burton.
Good afternoon, Dr. Hayden.
How are you? And
Indeed
thank you
well,
so much.
Indeed well. Thank you
But
for
with
the
our
invitation.
theme, well,
open
with
a
our
book,
theme,
open the world.
Yes,
Yeah.
open a book. I got so excited, I twisted it up because for me, you could imagine, and you with your, what book, I have to start by asking you, was there a particular book that opened the world to you?
You know, Dr. Hayden, when I was a kid, the book I read that really delivered the experience of reading to me was Captain's Courageous, Rudyard Kipling. And I remember upon finishing the book, I closed it, and I was met with this profound sense of sadness. I didn't recognize it then. I do now as a minor depression. And I was depressed because I was leaving the world that I had become so attached to and characters that I had really grown close to in a very short period of time. So today, when I'm reading a particularly good piece of fiction, I consciously slow down the last chapter or two to sort of forestall that inevitable sense of sadness that will descend and take hold when the tale is particularly engrossing and engaging.
You are a true reader. We can see some of the books behind you. What started you on this path of loving reading and being such a person who just gets into books and the whole world of reading?
My identity as a reader, Dr. Hayden, was forged by my mother, Irma Jean Christian, E-R-M-A-G-E-N-E. Whenever I have the opportunity to speak my mother's name in public, I do. I consider that I am the man that I am because she was the woman that she was. My mom was an English teacher by profession. Her second career was in social work. And I grew up in a house where reading was, how do you say it? Mandatory. I like to say that in Irma Jean's house, you either read a book or you got hit in the head with one, but you were going to have an experience with the written word.
Wow. And so was that part of you becoming such a advocate for literacy, from Reading Rainbow to your own book club now? You were really on the forefront.
My mother not only read to us when we were kids, I have two sisters, she read in front of us. And so it was that all-important modeling that really cemented the behavior. I grew up knowing that reading was as essential to the human being as is breathing, right? Wow. And so it really has, in large measure, shaped my life and my career. Roots, based on a Pulitzer Prize-winning novel, Star Trek, those allegorical scripts that Gene Roddenberry wrote on the original series, and that tradition continued with The Next Generation. They say in my business, it all begins on the page. If it ain't on the page, it ain't on the stage, right? So literature and the written word are critically important to what I do, to storytelling and the way I do what it is I do.
And so as a librarian, I have to ask too about the role of libraries, because you had to feed all of that love of reading. So did libraries play any part?
Absolutely. I grew up in Sacramento, California. We call it River City. And during the summers, I grew up in South Sacramento, which didn't have its own branch library. It does now. But the bookmobile was the lifeline for me during those summers when I was a kid growing up in Sacktown. The arrival of the bookmobile in the neighborhood was cause for celebration, at least in my household it was. I spent an awful lot of time during the summers on my bed reading, AM radio tuned to San Francisco Giants baseball games, and just disappearing into worlds that I could not imagine. I miss those days tremendously when I had infinite amount of time to read simply for pleasure.
So the bookmobile was sort of like the ice cream truck when you could tell it was coming, huh?
As good as the ice cream truck, in my opinion.
It was feeding you and things. Now you still, I mentioned your book club. You have a book club where you select the books, I've been told.
I do. I select everything we read in the LeVar Burton Book Club on Fable. I hand pick. We began this journey back in May with Go Tell It on the Mountain by James Baldwin. Our second selection was Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler. I'm a huge fan of speculative fiction. She is the beginning and the end of canon for me. We followed that up, but we went back to Baldwin with The Fire This Time, a volume of essays and poems that were edited by the great Jessamine Ward. And we just announced this week, we are on Deacon King Kong, James McBride. That's our fourth selection in the LeVar Burton Book Club. You can join us at fable.co/LeVar. That's how you find me. I've never had a book club before, but this company has developed a technology that gives me a presence in the virtual world right there along with the readers in the club, and I'm having a great time. So come on over and join us, fable.co/LeVar.
Now you mentioned Baldwin, James Baldwin, twice. So I take it you're a pretty big James Baldwin fan.
I am indeed. He is the alpha and the omega where letters are concerned. The man was not only a brilliant writer, he was a brilliant thinker. And when Baldwin wrote those many years ago, decades now, it is astonishing to me that he was speaking directly to me. At least that's how it feels when I read him. Speaks directly to me about the world in which I live in this now moment. And so to have a voice that is as clear and as prophetic as is his, that is couched in such beautiful lyrical prose, his thoughts and ideas continue to inspire me and millions around the world. He really is singular in my view. He occupies a place in the pantheon, all that is all his own.
And you mentioned one of my favorites, Octavia Butler. And what is so different in one way, but also very compelling.
From her own particular area of interest and expertise, speculative fiction, imagining the future, she too has been eerily prescient in her predictions about the world that we live in right now. And I think that is, in fact, part of the glory of literature and having a relationship with the written word, to be able to enhance our own understanding and reflections of our world, in addition to stimulating and exercising our imagination muscle. I think that the imagination is the superpower of human beings, and it is through our engagement with literature, mostly fictional literature, that we really exercise that imagination muscle. I say one of the reasons that I continue to read to the generation of adults now who grew up on Reading Rainbow through my book club and my podcast, LeVar Burton Reads. I feel a responsibility to help this next generation develop their imaginations, because the problems that my generation is leaving them are myriad. And I think chief among the tools that they will rely upon to solve these very complex problems going forward is their imagination. And so a healthy relationship with an imaginary world, with our imaginative selves, I think is critical to the human being, to the successful being in any case. I think it's important. It is impossible, really, to really reach your full potential in life unless you are literate in at least one language. Because if you can read, right, then you have the opportunity to be a learner for life. And that's what we try to do on Reading Rainbow. Take a child who could read and turn them into a reader for life. That's where the opportunity to become a lifelong learner really exists, in that realm of being a reader, self-identifying as a reader.
Now, back to the podcast, though. With your podcast, you select short stories. So,
yes, ma'am.
What's the strategy with that?
What's the deal there?
Yeah.
Well, I have a lot of help with the podcast and finding the right stories. It is a podcast that features short fiction. So in every episode, I read a different piece of short fiction that I've handpicked. There is a process that we go through. My producer, Julia Marie Smith, I say in every episode in the credits, she's the best in the business. And we have a research assistant, Lakeisha Lewis, and they source the stories and they give the first pass. They read them first. Those that they feel are candidates, they funnel to me, and I read them and make the final determination.
I know you're a true reader, but how do you find the time? I know during this past year, books probably meant a lot to you during the pandemic, but you read a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, it's a habit, right? Right now, most of in fact, for the last several years, I'm recording, I've begun recording episodes for the 10th season of LeVar Burton Reads. We have over 100 episodes of content, of short stories. And I introduce the book and the author and then read the story. And then I do a little postscript at the end, talk a bit about what or how the author or the author's story impacted me. I love it. Reading aloud is one of my favorite ways of storytelling, taking an author's words and interpreting them for an audience. I love it. Doing all the voices and playing the different characters. It really is joyful noise for me.
Now, you also mentioned in terms of Roots, and that's a book that was made into another medium. Do you find that that's a difficult thing to do, or do you enjoy seeing books being made into films? Or
I enjoy it when they're done well. They're not always done well, those adaptations, but when they're done right, I believe that they really can enhance the audience's appreciation of the story and storytelling in general. I think Roots was incredibly well done, both the original and the revisiting of the story. And I was one of the executive producers on the retelling of Roots, because I felt it important to keep this story alive in American culture. The original miniseries aired back in 1977, 45 years ago. And so there's a whole generation of Americans who had not seen the original, who I believe really do need to have that as a part of their understanding of what it means to be an American.
And so when that transition from book to film is not successful, what would you say, or how would you characterize failure, and that's it.
Failure is a failure, but failure can also be a very powerful teacher and really informative. I've seen some adaptations, and I think, well, that was just a bad idea from the beginning, and I don't know why they didn't see that. But then again, books and movies, like most things subjective, are a matter of taste. And so not everyone feels the same way about everything. And that's the beauty of living in a world of infinite variety like we do.
So did books and reading help you during this past year and a half?
They did tremendously, Dr. Hayden. At the beginning of the pandemic, I made a decision, a choice to try and contribute to the moment by reading over the internet. And so I did, for a couple of months, I did 3 sessions a week. On Monday mornings, I would read books to children. On Wednesday afternoons, I read YA selections, mostly from my friend Jason Reynolds. And on Friday nights, I read to adults. I read short stories to adults. And so that just, in a time when, we were locked down and at home, it felt like something that I could do to contribute to the moment that we were all sharing in common.
I had to give a little shout out to Jason Reynolds because he's the Library of Congress's ambassador for young people's literature, and he's been so active just like you during this time. So that partnership with you two, I'm sure, was very, very strong. And there are so many
one of my heroes
too that, yes, who also found books comforting and provided context for a lot of the issues, just general issues that were going on. Did you go to Baldwin for some of that?
Baldwin was a real balm, certainly during the protests and demonstrations for peace and justice in America. Baldwin, he spoke directly about this moment, and it is amazing to me that that some of the dynamics that Baldwin wrote about and spoke about so eloquently are unchanged, virtually unchanged all of these years later. And it really is indicative of the need and necessity for America to finally turn and face ourselves, face the real story, not the fictionalized version of who we are as a nation, but just tell the truth about who we are and how we got here, so that we might be able to look one another in the eye from a place of honesty. And only then, I believe, is reconciliation a possibility for this nation. We have to be honest about who we are as a nation, the choices that we've made to get to where we are. You got to take the good and the bad together. And when we do that, I believe that we will be much better off and much stronger as a nation when we can own up to all of our history, not just the history that makes us feel good about ourselves.
And another author you selected for your book club, James McBride, weaves history and fiction, and his musical background comes in.
Yeah, the man is so remarkably talented. It makes me want to slap him. He's that good at so many things. I think that my introduction to James McBride was through The Color of Water, which is sort of an autobiographical look at his life. And the thing that really jumps out to me about James's writing is the deep sense of humanity that he infuses all of his characters with in the stories that he writes. And that humanity springs directly from him. He is one of the most present, empathetic, compassionate people I've ever met. And those qualities just drip off the page of his novels.
And You have inspired so many young people with Reading Rainbow, and you mentioned them earlier. What message would you say, would you give to them now?
Well, to the generation of adults now who grew up on the show, I'm still there as a part of your lives, introducing you to new authors through either the book club or the podcast, and still engaged in a relationship with you around good books and new authors. To succeeding generations, I think the song said it all. Butterfly in the sky, you can go twice as high. Take a look, it's in a book, The Reading Rainbow. The idea that you can pick up a book and travel anywhere in the universe or beyond in your imagination is a pretty powerful statement to make.
And before we open it up to the audience, I'd just like to ask you another message you might want to give, because there's been a lot of talk about Jeopardy lately. And I just wondered if you would just like to use this opportunity to tell your fans and thank them for the support that they've shown you.
Thank you, Dr. Hayden. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I have been overwhelmed by the support from the people, from folks out there. They saw that I put myself out there. I wanted the gig. I said that I wanted the gig, and I went for it. It didn't work out that way. But you know, when one door closes, they say another one opens, or a window at least becomes ajar. So opportunities that are in front of me right now would never have been possible had I gotten that job. I do believe, I'm one of those people that believes everything happens for a reason and in its own time and timing. And oftentimes it's the fullness of time that reveals, you know, the true purpose for events as they unfold in our lives. And I just try and be patient and wait for that which is to be to reveal itself. And in this case, I didn't have to wait very long. I'm really excited about the opportunities that we're looking at right now.
Well, I'm sure we're all excited too, and we want to know as soon as you could let us know what's going on.
You posted, Doctor.
Keep us posted. Now we have some questions coming in, and I'm going to just start with the question from John. And John wants to know, and this, I think I want to hear your answer about this too. When reading a new book that you are unsure about, how much do you read before deciding you can't continue?
You know, it's funny because we live in a world where it is possible to get plenty of information before you open the book and start with chapter 1. So it is, I can't remember the last book I began that didn't come to my attention as a recommendation from somebody who I know and trust, or something that I've read about the book or the author that piqued my interest. So it's been very few times. I think I've only ever started one novel in my life and not finished it. And that was way back in the day when I was in school. Norman Mailer's Armies of the Night. I just, for some reason, couldn't get into it. You know what? I should actually probably give that book another opportunity and see if I don't feel differently about it all of these years later.
Like Brussels sprouts, give it another shot.
Yeah.
Because there's such book. Yeah.
He was a celebrated author. Just at the time, it didn't seem to have anything to offer me. And that's the other thing about books. There is a gift in every book, in every novel, and there is something that we take away that is a gift from the story, from the author. And I look forward to those, you know, those gifts, those gems, those presents in my life.
Yes, because there's book guilt that so many of us grew up with. You have to finish it. So we have a question now from Melinda, who wants to know, and she says, I love that you've also used your talents as a narrator. And can you tell us either about your experience narrating or your personal experience with audiobooks? They're very popular.
It's a great question. I personally, I love audio literature, and for me, if I've listened to a book, I really do consider that I've read it. The thing about audio literature, to me, is like I said, that opportunity to really perform a story using the clues that the author gives in the text. It's just fun to connect those dots and from a few phrases of description, create a character or set a scene, bring the correct emotional note to the moment. And we live in a society where we are multitasking. We're doing several things at the same time. Reading a book forces me to stop and be completely present, but I find that I can still enjoy a story when it's being told to me. And who doesn't like being read to? I spend a lot of time reading to folks. I am no different. I like to be read to as well.
And audiobooks give you a lot of freedom to do those other things, but still hear the story.
Still be engaged in the story, that's right.
Now, a question from Michelle that relates to where I am right now. It says, when you visited the Library of Congress for your Reading Rainbow episode, you got to see some pretty cool behind the scenes places. So do you have any fun memories of that day?
I do indeed. The maps room, seeing ancient documents that, that delivered information that shaped the decisions that people made. Maps are really incredible documents and full of stories. And it was just really exciting to be able to be that close to documents that were so rare that they're only pulled out on special occasions, and you have to wear, special gloves in order to handle them. In fact, I didn't touch anything on the day. But it was thrilling to just be that close to documents that old that were as important as they were in the moments of their creation. I mean, they were really critical to as I say, things that happened, historical moments were based on those maps. Kind of crazy.
And you were looking at the real thing. That's why the gloves.
The real thing.
Now, there's a question from Beatrice. LeVar, you have had a huge impact on my love of reading. Just wondering, what's next for you in addition to your new book club? Anything on the horizon?
Yes. One of the ways I love being a storyteller is as a director of television and film. And for the past several years, I've been in the directing rotation on a show called NCIS New Orleans, starring my old friend Scott Bakula. And that show was canceled last year, but the producing and writing staff has moved over to another CBS show called NCIS Hawaii. And in about 16 days time, I'll be heading over there for my first directing assignment on this new season of NCIS, the first season of NCIS Hawaii.
Great. Because John has a question. He wants to know, are there any books you've read that you'd like to see yourself playing a character in a film version?
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think like everybody, when I read novels, if there's room for it, I certainly imagine myself as the hero, as the protagonist. But there are a couple. There's a book by Walter Tevis that I would really like to make into a film, and the lead role is one that I think I would really enjoy playing. The role is that of an artificial intelligence, a very sophisticated AI, who is actually in charge of the world as it has survived in this novel, in the time frame of this novel. And when we meet this character, he is in the process of trying to end his existence. The whys and the wherefores I won't spoil for you, but he's unsuccessful in that attempt, and the story becomes a sort of a love story, a triangle between this character and two other characters. Phenomenal story. Walter Tevis, the man who wrote The Hustler, and that film adaptation, starring Paul Newman, Jackie Gleason, Rip Torn, one of the best book adaptations into a motion picture that ever was made. I think the Hustler, and then the follow-up, The Color of Money, where Paul Newman played the same character, Fast Eddie Felton. Both great films from the source material, a book.
Wow. Now I know people are going to start looking at the movie and the book, The Hustler. They're going to do it.
I hope so. I hope so. It's a phenomenal ride. Walter Tevis, he passed on some years ago, but he left behind a body of work that is substantial and, in my estimation, formidable. Really enjoyed his work an awful lot.
Well, Robert, who was one of your biggest fans, said, I am one of so very many people who grew up watching you on Reading Rainbow and being encouraged to read from an early age. What would you tell me today at 42?
I hope you're still reading, Robert. And if you aren't, why not? I think that, so many of us, because we live in such a fast-paced universe, we feel like we don't have time to read, that's something that we can sacrifice, when in fact, I think it's quite the opposite. I think that time spent in the imaginative space is really critical to human beings and our overall mental health. That's one of the things that I love about being on the Fable platform. This company and its founder, Padma Shri Warrior, their research reveals that reading at least an hour a day, or not even, just spending some time in the activity of reading is good for our mental health. And boy, I think we could all use we could all step up our mental health game these days. We are all under an awful lot of stress, and reading for pleasure, for enjoyment, if you prioritize it, if you make it a part of your self-care routine, you will derive the benefits from that, as I say, a relationship with the written word and your imagination.
I really love how you characterize reading as part of self-care. And that's something that we should consider it as. It's not a luxury or anything. It's really taking care of yourself to expand your mind.
It is
now,
for
John,
me. It's not optional. Like I said, it was never optional in Irma Jean's house, and it's not optional in my house either. You've got to read. I mean, I don't hit folks with books, but my threats are a little bit more subtle. But you do need to read in this house. You absolutely do.
And that's how you encouraged your own children?
The cattle prod wasn't necessary for Ward or for Mika. They both love it. I was able to read a lot to Michaela when she was a kid. We read Goodnight Moon to her every night. I read Harry Potter with her. My wife Stephanie read Lemony Snicket with her. We watched Jeopardy every night as a family. And we had just so much fun as she was growing up, trying to guess the answers to the questions. And, you know, and it's amazing to have seen her go from not knowing anything and just guessing to actually, you know, knowing the answers. So they say that, you know, I like to say that all media is educational, right? All TV is educational. The question is, what are we teaching? And for me, that show really was a high mark of, and really reflected my love of curiosity and information and facts. I mean, for a half an hour every night, everyone could agree on the facts as they were presented on Jeopardy. There was no arguing them. There was no such thing as alternative facts. When you're talking about the answers on Jeopardy, they are truth, and that truth is immutable. So there's, I think, at least for me, there was a certain comfort that came from watching that show night after night when Alex was alive.
And bringing so many people together, looking at the same thing and trying to answer the questions with something too. And so your friends, John wants to know, have you ever read any of the Star Trek novels that feature Geordi LaForge as a character?
I have not.
Maybe that's who we want you to be.
Yeah, well, that's the character that I played on the show. And I know that there are so many titles out there. But I got to tell you, John, there are episodes of Next Generation that I have not seen. We shot 179 of them, depending upon how you count. And there are almost 100 that I haven't seen yet. When we were making the show, it was just impossible to keep up with watching it. And I just stopped trying, knowing that for the rest of my life, I'd be able to tune in every day, practically, somewhere on the dial and catch an episode of Star Trek. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm enjoying watching them pop up. I did a lot of directing on Voyager and Deep Space Nine and Enterprise, and when those episodes pop up, it was such an amazing period in my life, and the storytelling that was done on those shows was of a really high caliber. And when you think about it, for most of the time, we started Next Generation, and then we were followed by Voyager, and then there were 2 Star Trek shows on simultaneously for the next couple of decades, because then it was Voyager and Deep Space Nine, and then Deep Space Nine and Enterprise were on concurrently. So, and those series were 26 episodes a season. We shot 10 months of the year, 12 to 14 hours a day, 5 days a week for 10 months of the year. It was a factory, a high quality factory for storytelling, the likes of which we will never see again. That was a pretty phenomenal output of really high quality storytelling that went on the Paramount lot for years and years under the direction of Rick Berman, the executive producer.
And based on books, which is something.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, Laverne, more advice, because she says, my family enjoyed you tremendously on Reading Rainbow. Please provide some tips to encourage a child who is not an avid reader.
Parents ask me all the time, how can I get my child to read more? And I generally ask them 2 questions. Number 1, does your child see you reading? It is that very important modeling that I think really needs to be a part of the equation, part of the solution to the problem of getting our children to read more. The second question I ask is, what is your child passionate about? Because it's our passions that drive our reading appetite. I've said for years, if your child loves superheroes, then buy your kid a comic book, because I don't care what the gateway drug is to reading, right? Comic books are legitimate storytelling. So we need to go and meet our kids where they are before we can take them where we want them to go. Discover what your child is passionate about, and then find reading material on that subject or idea.
I'm so glad that you endorsed allowing young people to read comic books as that gateway, because that has proven in so many instances to be that hook, and graphic novels and everything. So to be able to hear you say, use that is very good.
Comic books had a really important part of my childhood. I'm an Army brat, so we lived overseas. And when we were posted to Germany, when I was in the 3rd and the 4th grade, every Saturday, we would go around to the different apartment blocks on base and trade comic books, because a comic book you hadn't read was a new comic book to you. And, you know, this was the 60s, and everything had to be shipped over, right? So we were behind in terms of what was new and happening in popular culture. All the television at that time was in German, so we ended up listening to the radio for entertainment and reading. And so my childhood was full of books, and comic books were certainly a large part of that for me.
Well, I'm also pleased to hear you say that, because the Library of Congress, as you probably know, has the largest comic book collection. People might not realize that in the country. So
I think that
definitely
when I come, my next visit, I want to take a look at the comic book stack. I want to see what y'all got.
Good.
Yeah,
we have
I
it.
think that'd be
We have it.
I think
And
that would be awesome.
it's and people are really interested in the podcast too. LeVar Burton reads, and Kay wants to know specifically now, how do you choose which stories you feature? Because there's so many good ones. You mentioned the funnel, but how do you make that selection?
Okay, my criteria is really simple. When I get excited, when I begin to get excited about wanting to share that story, wanting to read it aloud, when I begin imagining what the characters sound like, when I really begin to immerse myself from the point of view of performance in the story, I know it's a pretty good candidate. That's always an indicator for me. When I get excited about wanting to read it aloud, that's a sure sign for me that the story is a contender.
And that's what you say, okay, this is one I want to pick, because there are so many.
This is one I'm going to pick. Yeah.
Well, this has been a very hard year, and John sent in one of our last questions, and it really speaks to, I think, what we all want to know. What books have you found to offer direction forward and an uplifting mindset?
I'm going to mention a couple. When talking about favorite literature for kids, I always cite Amazing Grace by Mary Hoffman. I also love Derek Munson's book Enemy Pie. Those are two terrific stories that have a lot of value, cover to cover. We talked earlier about Jason Reynolds for the YA set. He's just brilliant. He gets teenagers. He hasn't forgotten what it feels like to live in that skin. He's brilliant. I'm going to mention a book, The Road Less Traveled. You mentioned something that helped me along my journey. This is nonfiction, but The Road Less Traveled, M. Scott Peck, MD. It was a book that I read at a pivotal time in my life when I was really looking for answers about how to be the most effective human being I could be. And I got an awful lot from that book, The Road Less Traveled by Dr. M. Scott Peck.
I'm definitely getting it. So thank you, LeVar, for your support of the festival, and most importantly, your devotion to books and reading. You've inspired us all, and we love spending time with you. And we look forward to seeing you in Washington, D.C. soon. We'll bring out the good silver, all the comic books you want.
And of course, we look forward to Labor Day weekend 2022, where we can gather again as well as virtually and celebrate the great literary tradition that our nation is known for.
And on behalf of the Library of Congress, thank you for joining us tonight. The National Book Festival is now off and running, so go to loc.gov/bookfest to start your literary journey. Have a great evening and take care.
Peace and blessings, everybody.